Life is beautiful and you matter. You're important. It's Homo Vulgaris.
Looks like we're running low tonight, but we have a new guest here who I think we just have to name Spooky. Is that what you want to go by on our show?
Okay.
We're kind of like the lady from Spirited Away. We took away your name, you're in the show now, and we've given you a new one.
Oh, wow.
For your protection.
And I'm in the show now. It's like Senpai noticed me.
Yeah, that when we had you sign that was a clause to protect you.
Well, you know, if anyone really wants to be in the show, all it takes is showing up in our Discord. That's about all it takes.
Yeah.
Did you know that the leading cause of death among young white men today is driving a car really fast into a telephone pole?
No, and welcome to the show. You just slid in. You just eased in with that one.
Yeah.
We hadn't even started the first topic of discussion. And how do you know being Paul Walkered is the #1 cause of death, or did you just make that up?
I just made that up. I didn't know we'd be recording already, I would have said something funnier.
Yeah, no,
if we were.
That's you got that in. That's locked in now.
That fact's actually concerned by the CDC, the Center for Driving Cars.
No, I get it.
Wow. Okay.
So I know I went kind of overboard on the sound effects on the last episode, but let's veer away from the radio disc jockey level jokes, because that's what we're headed towards. And the topic that we did not get to discuss last time.
Let's all finish introducing ourselves, because we need to make sure that we brand ourselves strongly with our identities and our Twitter handles at the beginning of every episode. I'm Dr. Shoggoth at Dr. Shoggoth on Twitter.
I'm Pinback at _Pinback on Twitter.
And I'm Busters. I don't want you to find me or contact me in any way.
I just want you to read my posts and like and retweet them so I can get those fave stars and become an internet thinkfluencer.
Spooky, do you have a Twitter or Etsy store? Or,
I've got a Twitter, but I never use it, so... at S is Terrified on Instagram.
I guess we wanted to talk about a really, really old piece of the internet, as we are wont to do, which is the Final Fantasy House.
Right.
Huh?
Final Fantasy House is, of course, the time that a bunch of fucking weirdo Final Fantasy VII otakus started an anime cult in a strange woman's house that led to some ruined lives. Due to weird anime psychosis.
A heretical anime cult. There is one correct anime cult.
Yes, that's the whole lane thing, which you can find out if you're a gold level or ally or above level subscriber on Patreon. You get the book where we lay it out. We get the decoder ring.
But this particular phenomenon, the reason anyone knows about it is it was well documented on kind of a blog format that you can still go and read today.
Yeah,
and a Vice article, if you want a concise version.
Or if the Encyclopedia Dramatica article is also a classic of the form.
But what happened? How to get started? Most of it's told from the story of one person, isn't it?
Yes, a person named Icarus who does a webcomic. I'll try and find the links to and put in the description, along with her account and several others' accounts of this. She met some people through a Final Fantasy VII fan page. This is back in the early days of the old Web 1.0, kids. This was back when you met people on fan pages, which were frequently part of web rings, which is probably how she found the famous hojo.org, I believe it was. Through a Final Fantasy VII role-playing chat, where the young lady who was involved here was sort of assigned the role of ZUCK. I don't know his last name. The Cloud Recolor from the second disc of Final Fantasy VII. For those in the know, or I don't know, you could.
was doing some research. Is it ZUCK Fair?
Fair, yeah, ZUCK Fair. That sounds right. Yeah, he becomes, I guess, really important in all the sequels and spin-offs, but I haven't really...
Yeah, I think he's got 7 lines of dialogue in a game that goes for 40 hours.
So, the young lady went to stay with these people online for a concert and just to hang out, meeting people online like you do. And, thought they were a little weird, but fun. They did their weird Final Fantasy VII LARPing. The author of this story was incredibly victimized, but she was also a big weird weeb who was susceptible to these kinds of things. As the story goes on, you see that, how this kind of, you know, this mindset, this otaku fandom thing, this fandom in general, we'll get to that. She went to the concert of these people's houses, and if I recall right, they're like...
Jimmy Eat World.
Jimmy Eat World, yeah. They were playing IRL magic battles, where they were like, you know, think they were forming energy balls and throw them at each other and pretend they're having like wizard fights, like LARPing, but without the layer of we're playing a game.
Yeah, without the rule structure or like, yeah, we're doing this for fun. More of like, if you clap your hands together, Tinkerbell will come back to life.
Kamehameha, sort of.
Yeah, like Chris Chan's famous Cursey Hami Ha.
Except
But LARPing, but without the funk arts.
Yeah, without the P.
Oh, yeah,
there was some P involved, if I remember. So then this young lady goes back to her college or something, gets into a fight with her family, somehow needs a new place to live, and decides to go live with her strange new friends. And over time, this story just devolves into, she gets trapped in their world, she finds out it's not a game. This strange cult leader who believes that she's Genova, who's a weird alien monster that came from space and killed the ancients or something, that she was an actual physical incarnation of this video game character, and that her girlfriend was Hojo, who was a weird, creepy scientist. These cult leaders, see, this should have been obvious from the beginning. These cult leaders' characters were the bad guys in the story.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty weak twist. I think the progression was the interesting thing before it got really, really dark, because it was, if I believe right, the narrator graduated from college or was between semesters or something like that, and they took a job at a grocery store or something, and they ended up supporting this commune with their paycheck.
If I remember correctly, the narrator, who now identifies as a man, was very much a kind of isolated queer kid who really didn't have like a really good relationship at home with their live-in parent, and that's kind of how they ended up.
I thought that it was the other way around, and that she now identified as a woman. So I got that backwards. My bad.
If either of us is wrong, please send us a correction to homovulgarispodcast@gmail.com.
It's one of those. We don't really care what your gender is. We're just trying to be nice.
Well, the other thing is, like, if enough people are listening to actually notice we got something wrong, I'd like that. But
I know, right?
No, the point of it was, like, they were forced to basically, like, pay, their entire paycheck went to rent and groceries. And when they got home from their wage slave job, a lot of the duties of taking care of the house also fell on them as well.
Yeah, that's not uncommon in a commune situation.
Right.
Yeah.
Or an abusive relationship.
Right, so it started out like abusive relationships, but then the things like the being dunked in ice water or locked in a room for several hours at a time so you could get your mana up. That's where it enters the cult level. So do you guys remember the practices that they underwent?
The chick who played the chick that was Hojo would do like that ice water thing and the like training for mana or whatever, to the chick that was Eris or Aerith, depending on your preferences. Yeah, because it's all. I'm not gonna say it makes more sense if you know the story of Final Fantasy VII, but the parallels are clearer of what these people were doing, and it seems a little less random It's very specific, structured insanity, not random insanity.
I guess it doesn't seem like random insanity to me, because if I was a cult leader and I really wanted to break down someone's mental defenses, like isolation and exposing them to extremes of like cold and putting them in situations where your body thinks it's dying, but you're not really dying. You can recover someone from an ice bath pretty quickly if you need to. That's really good cult leadership stuff right there.
That's some classic Shinrikyo Jonestown kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it does tie into the fact that this whole cult was actually part of an MK Ultra program being run by the CIA, where they're testing out interrogation methods that would later be used in Guantanamo Bay and other black sites. But
I don't think that's true. I think that's an interesting. It's
or
an interesting,
is it
abstract, or is it? Is it so crazy it just has to be true?
Just because I just made it up doesn't mean it's not true.
But like, I first happened upon the story, I think in 2007, it was featured on ED, and so I read the whole thing, and I was just in disbelief that it was real. And I will go, and I bookmarked it on like every computer I've owned since 2007. I bookmarked it on like random ass computers in the library and in Best Buy. And like, I still cannot believe that this actually happened, but maybe this was like, I can't believe these are real people, but maybe they're real people. I mean, I've met some weird people in real life, so.
My thoughts are that not only is this real, but I bet this occurs more often than we think.
Oh yeah,
probably.
It'll happen with Final Fantasy VII. It'll happen with other things. They weren't part of the subculture at the time, and I think it's kind of gone away. But there was, at least for a while, a thing of a otaku kid, or fiction kid, or soul bonders, who believed that they were, incarnations of fictional characters, usually from anime and video games. But the one, like the head honcho of that was a Digimon otherkin, if I remember right.
There is a weird trend that I've observed on the internet for a long time, and I don't know exactly how to describe it, but it's this idea that, like, if you can't conclusively prove some abstract belief or imaginative thing is wrong, then it can be true. Then anything can be true. So you get this recurring thing that, like, oh, fictional stories are real in some parallel universe and spirits can cross through them. Like, I think on some level, we talked about Chris Chan earlier, on some level he believes, or at one point believed, that there was some parallel universe where Sonichu and Quickville and all that stuff, his little world was real.
I think not to digress too much on Chris, but I think he's refined that a little bit, where he believes there's kind of a demi-plane that exists because he believes in it. Not that it's always existed and that he discovered it, but it's kind of like I made this world, thus it must exist in my universe.
In some space. Yeah, some pocket dimension. Yeah, it's a surprisingly common thing, at least on the internet.
Right. So it's that weird, and that it's that same logic that a lot of them use, and it's a little hard to grasp, but it is sort of like not that the fictional world has existed as an actual alternate reality and you're just tapping into it. It's that your belief has made it into reality. It's sort of magical thinking in a way.
Yeah, extremely.
Yeah, and but then you add the level of anime to it, and that's when it becomes internet. That's where it goes from plain crazy to our brand.
It's Homo Vulgaris.
Because when you put a little anime in it, that gives it that extra spice, that pizzazz. Like, sure, Aleister Crowley had his whole Abbey of Thelema, which was filthier and probably worse in a lot of ways than Final Fantasy VII House. But you know what he didn't have? Anime.
Right. Well, and then he was pulling from elements of religious and spiritual beliefs at will and kind of trying to create a new canon, whereas the anime thing is it's completely unoriginal. It's completely unoriginal, and it's just because they latched onto this world.
I mean, your description of Aleister Crowley pretty closely matches Evangelion.
Yeah, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Yeah, okay, if the creators of Evangelion started their own cult based on their own creation, that would be different than fans starting a cult because they wanted the world to be true. That's the difference here.
But anyhow, back to these nice people in Final Fantasy VII House. They had ancillary characters that didn't live there, but that was still part of their circle. I believe the guy who was Sid Highwind was one of those guys, and he comes across fairly regular from the correspondence and seems like he was their weird friend who, well, they were his weird friends. He was not particularly strange compared to them. And I don't remember anything interesting about him, really. But,
yeah, there's a few people that drift in and out.
Yeah, there was the house, and then there was these people that came in and out of the house, and there were people. The person you're working with right now, you don't know. They might be part of a Final Fantasy VII cult.
Yeah,
probably not a Final Fantasy VIII cult.
From what I recall, the sort of leader, the one who sort of created and sort of drew everyone else into these fantasies, was extremely controlling. Like I said, would take everyone else's money and decide how to spend it, and was also really lazy. Like, would never get off her ass to do anything, and made everyone else do all the work. Like, they talked about how they moved from the original house to a cramped, even smaller apartment. And
I forgot about that.
This poor person who's moved in with them because they don't really have anywhere else to go is the one who's stuck doing all the work, moving everything on a hot summer day, while this person who owns all the stuff just sits there watching and complaining.
And then creeps on her sexually too.
Yeah,
because there was a lot of that going on there, which always that's part of any cult.
Didn't the hot summer day kind of had a little bit more like significance in that like the narrator in the story characterized themselves as not being an especially, and this is probably true of anyone who would join a Final Fantasy cult, being not especially like a physical person, and that amount of labor in a hard environment really broke them down, and then the level of harassment and pressure to remain a member of the group is just, it's one of those psychological like 101 things, man. You're gonna move hot bricks in the sun until you realize that I love you, and you can never leave.
Yeah, mind control shit.
Lifting chairs in the hot sun, I fought the cult, and the cult won.
And for a long time, the cult did win, because this girl was there for a while, wasn't she? Months, and long enough to go through a move with them. Yeah,
closing in on a year, I think.
And you mentioned earlier, but I want to bring attention to that specifically, the Eris analog. Like, they would make this weird lady who thought she was a reincarnated video game mad scientist, would make this girl, like, naked in a bathtub and fill it with ice cubes and make her stay there, trying to, like, build up her powers or recover her video game memories or something. Like, they were systematically torturing and mentally breaking people down. Like, it was, it's funny, but it's also horrible when you think about it. Except when you're in this kind of situation and you think you are a Final Fantasy VII character, once you've opened the door to that, then maybe taking a bath in ice cubes is, maybe that'll work. I don't know.
Well, even then, like, you're fresh out of college, you know you can't go back to your parents, you're working a minimum wage job, there's no escape. There's no escape from a situation like that. She was actually only with them for a few months, according to this.
Okay, yeah. Long enough to be.
It's going to be a long few months, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, even then.
So eventually she got fed up one day, and without her shoes...
Oh, yeah, the day the straw broke is pretty worth going into.
Yeah.
Spiggy, why don't you tell us about that?
Oh, well, they had walked home from work in the rain. Their shoes were, like, soaking wet. So they said, you know, I'm just going to leave my shoes outside the apartment. Because, like, Jen had before, whenever this kid...
The Genova
this
analog.
9-year-old kid had, like, come home, like, dirty. Like, when them and a friend had gone to the Jimmy Eat World concert and they came home with, like, the bottoms of their pants covered in mud, and, like, Jen would just, like, freaking blow up at them about it, so she decided to just leave her shoes outside, and someone stole her shoes, and that was when she broke down and said, you know what, You know, she took her pet rat. She took as much stuff as she could carry. She lived on the street. She took Hodors? Not Hodors.
Hojo.
Yeah, Hojo. She took Hojo's like college internet login and like IM'd her dad from like the college computers to say, hey, I need bailed out, because like that's how bad it was.
Yeah, because the two people there, the Genova and the Hojo, who were a couple who were always fighting and having sex in the shared space of this house, had access to all of her internet stuff, right? And while she was homeless and going to schools and libraries to find help, she was always worried that she was being tracked by these people, and that they would watch her messages and spy on her while she was still living with them to make sure she didn't ask for help or say anything cross.
So part of that process was them creating like new profiles on everything. You know, back in the day it was AIM, like they had to make a new AIM password. That must have been hard back then. I remember giving up my AIM.
Even like months after this kid had left and was like staying at her dad's and like getting resettled into the real world, like try and contact them and be like, hey, I'm still trying to find your shoes, you know, we're still friends, da 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 da, like, you know.
Oh, it was Sid. That's why Sid was important to the story. The parents didn't bail him out. Like, Sid was the one who hid them and let them stay, like, came to town and, like, let them stay over.
Okay.
So truly the best character in Final Fantasy VII and in the Final Fantasy VII house.
True.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, so using Sid's phone, they were able to get in contact with their parents and escape.
Yeah, because this was back when your parents probably weren't online.
Well, and also back when, you know, it was odd for people to go live with their parents after college.
Yeah, the economy, they still had an economy back then.
Could you imagine?
Right. The utter shame of having to do this. Yeah, I can definitely. Anyways, that is just one person's harrowing tale. And they kind of made it their quest after that. One, to document their own thing, and then kind of document other people's and then put them online. So it's demonsushi.com is where the Chronicles of the Final Fantasy House live.
Links in the description. We'll also link the Vice article, which catches up with our protagonist a couple years ago, and I think they've got a much better life now, thank goodness. Yeah. And that Vice article goes into some backstory, which isn't in the original blogs because no one knew it. Apparently, the Genova and the Hojo were sent to some like school for, I don't know if it was special needs kids or kids with some sort of mental illness that was like insanely abusive. And that's where they met each other, and they had to suffer through this abusive boarding school for messed up kids that just made them more fucked up. And that's kind of maybe how they ended up believing that they were Final Fantasy VII characters.
Well, that is a topic that was kind of hits home really, really close to me, because I went to a private school that produced like my graduating class of maybe less than 30. The kind of people it produced. I mean, even while we was there, we had someone shoot their own brother. Like, oh god, like it was just a terrible place, and the school was exacerbating a lot of the problems rather than offering like kind of a place where people go to normalize, you meet peers and stuff like that. The opposite effect happened where you put a bunch of normal kids into such an abnormal situation that they kind of like, it's like drowning. You grab onto anything you can. You grab onto Final Fantasy. You grab onto Sonic the Hedgehog. You grab onto internet weirdness. You grab onto guns. You grab onto anything that'll save you from the weirdness of your life, and then that just becomes your identity.
So that kid who shot his brother, was he a reincarnation of Liquid Snake from Metal Gear Solid?
No, again.
I'm sorry, that was bad.
Like, it's bad, and it's also, it's like, like I said, because I kind of hinted at it. You grab onto what you can. This kid grabbed onto hunting, and with his brothers, he loved to go hunting. And when they weren't hunting, they were talking about hunting or thinking about hunting. And so they used to play a game called Deer, where one person would run through the house and the other person would be the deer. And unfortunately, the gun was loaded.
Oh my god!
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So it wasn't like he lost it one day and just like up and murdered him.
No, but it was manslaughter because they were doing something just utterly insane, like
criminally dumb.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it goes beyond dumb, because I've never heard of any kids engaging in games like this, and only because their lives were at such a point where all they could latch on to was this sport that they played. It became so all-consuming that they were just recreating it in any way they could.
I don't see kids with a healthy home life being allowed to run around with a real gun in the house to play a game, loaded or not.
Right. Like I'm not saying hunting's, like, that's a completely different argument of the merits of letting your kids hunt. But if you let your kids hunt, I feel like you've probably provided enough structure for them to have them know that the firearms are only used when you're out of the house doing the sport activity. You know?
Like, I feel like I know a lot of hunters, and they have respect for guns because they've seen firsthand how dangerous they are.
Right.
They kill things with them.
But if that's all you have and that's all you latch onto, then you start. Well, I mean, this is why I bring it up. It's like Final Fantasy House. You latch onto something so hard that it's all you have, and it's all you do, and it's all you think about.
Yeah, I can get that.
Obsession. So now, what happened? If I'm right in remembering, the pair that ran the Final Fantasy House tried to like move on into other kin or some other group afterwards or something like that.
I imagine,
they had some. They had some further adventures, and so did the lady who was their heiress analog.
Spooky, do you know what happened afterwards? I don't.
No, but there are like other accounts from other people who stayed with them like later on, and subsequently left. But I don't know exactly like what happened, and I've read this 100 times. I've just got a really shut memory, so.
Right, I pulled it up and I was reading it because I couldn't remember half of it.
I did come across a conspiracy theory from, someone who was a fandom role player weirdo for the Hannibal show, which is also a really good show, if anyone wants to watch it. And this is just their conspiracy theory. I've got no evidence to back it up. A lot of the websites are down now. But their suspicion was that there was someone in the Hannibal fandom who role played as Freddie Lowndes, who had very conspicuous and gross manipulative relationships with other fans that resembled what you see with Final Fantasy VII House. So there's people like them out there, and these people themselves might still be out there going through the same process, just with other fandoms and other characters and other people. To this day. Ooh.
You see it happening. You see it happen in like relationships a lot, but which is terrifying. Like that people actually behave like this, but in fandoms you don't see it a lot, and so that's why it's so like this sort of thing is so jarring to see, like FF7 House or your Hannibal fandom. Like
just wait until there's a Rick and Morty house.
Oh God!
Dear.
Oh no!
We've been having a little bit of discussion about Rick and Morty recently. And
Rick, I don't know if starting a cult compound dedicated to us is such a great idea. Shut the fuck up, Morty! Morty, we're gonna fuck them. We're gonna take all their money, Morty.
Yeah, get in the bathtub full of ice, Morty.
Oh, Rick, it's really cold.
All right. Well, no, we were saying how the fandom of Rick and Morty has gotten a little bit out of control to the point where you're seeing like really terrible Facebook memes would be like, oh yeah, I'm Rick Sanchez and I didn't vote for Trump because I'm smart, and that's the point of this meme. It's like,
to be fair, you have to have a very high IQ to understand Rick and Morty. The humor is extremely subtle, and without a solid grasp of theoretical physics, most of the jokes will go over a typical viewer's head. There's also Rick's nihilistic outlook, which is deftly woven into his characterization. His personal philosophy draws heavily from Narodnaya literature, for instance. The fans understand this stuff. They have the intellectual capacity to truly appreciate the depths of these jokes, to realize that they're not just funny, they say something deep about life. As a consequence, people who dislike Rick and Morty truly are idiots, of course they wouldn't appreciate. For instance, the humor in Rick's existential catchphrase wubba lubba dub dub, which itself is a cryptic reference to Turgenev's Russian epic Fathers and Sons. I'm smirking right now just imagining one of those ill-pated simpletons scratching their heads in confusion as Dan Harmon's genius unfolds itself on their television screens. What fools. How I pity them. And yes, by the way, I do have a Rick and Morty tattoo. And no, you cannot see it. It's for the ladies' eyes only, and even they have to demonstrate that they're within 5 IQ points of my own. Preferably lower. Beforehand.
Great, good job.
Yeah, there's a lot of Antifa and neo-Nazis, and you're both dumb, and I can prove it mathematically. Like, it's real bad, folks. The
Pickle Rick James, bitch!
Yep.
I mean, they're not all, like, cults like the FF7 House are, but fandoms in general operate like cults do, with the hierarchies and arguments over canon and stuff, and it's bad. Fandoms are bad.
Traditional religions than cults, because the cults have kind of set around a personality, where these guys get more like exegesis and studying the text and theology. They're much more traditional in their.
That's true, but I mean, like in the broadest sense, a religion is a form of cult. But
in the broadest sense, religion is something I stick up my ass, Morty.
Bro, get way up there.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I identify with Rick because I am so smart and cynical, and that's really fucked up.
The kind of I am very smart things. I kind of first started keying into this when I saw one of those like 4-way diagrams, which was like shows about smart people for dumb people. The Big Bang Theory shows about smart people for smart people. Rick and Morty. I'm like, dude, if you have to pat your ass on its back, pat your ass on its back, pat your ass on its back for like watching a show, you're like, wow, this show's really for intellectuals. The butt jokes are just so subtle. Like, really? What are you doing with that?
Yeah, no, the actual smart show for smart people is Twin Peaks.
Again, you don't have to give yourself ass pats for getting David Lynch's like there is nothing style weirdness.
You know, I'm really glad you appreciated my show.
Star Trek, that's the smart show for smart people.
What is?
The smart show about smart people for smart people. That's definitely Star Trek The Next Generation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where everyone was just some wonderkind who, you know, I always wondered about that. Like, when Pen Forward is closed for special events, where do the lower decks people go to get beers and, you know, complain about Riker's sexual advances on them?
Well,
oh god, yeah, I bet he would, eh?
Had a character like that. What was his name? TNG character who?
Oh, but Barclay.
Fucked up. Barclay, yeah, there we go.
Oh, Barclay.
Yeah.
Barclay was actually like a good move on that part because it was like he didn't have any skills and all he really did was like try to make hot holodeck programs of Diana Troy. And that was
everybody
funny.
Gave him shit for it.
Right, that was funny and also a good kind of foil for the cast of characters who were very skilled and professional. But eventually
and very straight edge.
Right.
Yeah, they're a fucking obnoxious bunch.
Right. Well, I know Riker was probably like, hey, Barclay, hit me up with those holodeck programs, man. Those are pretty neat.
That's why, if you want to understand Star Trek, you have to watch the director's cut of the episode of Deep Space Nine with Q. Because most people only see the cut where you know he punches him and Q's like, Picard never punched me, and he's like, I'm not Picard. But in the director's cut, he's like, I'm not Picard. Picard's a bitch.
Whoa!
I've never watched really Deep Space Nine, but I've heard recently that it was actually the best Star Trek.
The version's not on Netflix, but if you contribute to the Patreon above the shit poster level, I'll send you a link.
Yeah, no. If you come in the Discord, I'll have a video night and we'll all watch some Star Trek together or something like that. How about that?
Oh man!
Oh, God.
But the thing about the Barclay episodes was eventually he had an episode where he finally like, oh yeah, you actually have a skill. And it started out with such a good premise is that it turns out Barclay he's afraid of the transporter, and he's
Oh,
never
like
been.
Scotty.
Yeah, but he's never been transported before.
Yeah,
like,
understandably.
and then the first time he gets transported, some alien worm thing like attacks him.
Well, every
See?
time you get transported, the version of you that's transported dies, and then a copy of you is rebuilt.
I don't know if I
Right.
want to go in the machine that kills me.
I saw
Hey,
this
it's not
weird.
like it's pure valid.
Like
saw-
it's not even. I don't think it's even debated anymore whether the transporter kills you. I think it's just kind of commonly accepted. And I was like, yeah, the transporter kills you, but you don't notice. Like,
I saw this one. It was an animation, and it wasn't about Star Trek, but it was about a scientist who invented a transporter thing, and the protagonist of this animation is some granola hippie philosopher who challenges them that this device is unethical because it essentially commits murder. And he's like, well, no, because I just simultaneously create myself. And it's like, all right, well, you've designed this machine to destroy you on one end and produce a copy on the other. So why don't you just set a timer on it where you create the thing first? I don't worry about your cats. Where you create a copy first, and then 5 minutes later, your original is destroyed. And then the creator has like an argument with his clone about who's the original one. And who has to go back?
Awesome.
He has to go. The thing is, you have to go back in the machine to be destroyed. So the two people are like, "Well, I'm the original. I came out this end," to be like, "Well, yeah, but maybe you should go back into the machine and get destroyed."
Was
Just
it
saying.
better than The Fly?
Goofier and a little. It's also really smug because it's being told by this lackadaisical like philosopher, be like, you know what, technology is just bad, and look at the repercussions of the amoral technology. You know,
Yeah, one of those.
One of those, yeah.
I like to take the technology as scary, but not necessarily bad. But it's still scary.
I mean, lots of things are scary and good, like spiders and sharks.
Yeah. But
You know, well,
these
on
kind
that
of
topic,
debates
and-
about the nature of technology in fictional universes is what fandom brings you to. It's like, and I guess there's nothing wrong with it, but then you get to a point where you're watching a Kevin Smith movie where you're watching some actors talk about some fan talk to fans, and that's not how podcasts work or anything like that. No. So moving right along.
Yeah. Well, no, like that whole like kind of trying to demonize technology thing has been kind of one of those things that has generated a lot of really terrible memes. Like the kind of "I'm 14 and this is deep" sort of memes, where it's like, yeah, man, look at this picture of I'll link it in the Discord. Look at this picture of a phone, man, but the phone is a prison.
Oh,
Dude,
yeah.
You know,
A bunch of people walking around looking down at their smartphone, and then there's like a George Orwell quote that George Orwell didn't actually say or something.
Oh, and one dude's looking up, and it's like, oh man, we're just fucking doomed, dude.
Holy crap.
We won't look away from our phones for 1 second.
Oh, no.
No. I just think that's fantastic. Oh wow, I literally found the thing we just described.
Did you see somebody drew one of those, but like a dude was like trapped in a fidget spinner, like chains?
No.
There's that'll have to probably be the episode picture.
You know what I want to see? I want to see done is, you know, that old medieval torture device called the wheel.
Yeah.
I want to see that,
That
but
was
it's a fidget. I want to see that, but a fidget spinner.
While you're busy fidget spinning, the government is spinning fidgets in your mind.
Yeah, spinning the press, spinning the story.
When you think about it, the universe is just God's fidget spinner.
Oh,
There we go.
wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
Morty, listen to this great Richard Dawkins quote I found. Oh, gee, I don't know about the new atheists. Shut up, Morty. You probably haven't even read the Christopher Hitchens book.
You know, it's funny because the show kind of already has begun the mocking of that, in that, like, the character of Rick is usually so high and mighty and above politics, but when he gets drunk, he can't stop talking about Israel.
Yes,
That was a good joke.
So I mean, and that is kind of a jab on the people that would say, like, oh, Rick, man, he's so disgusted with U.S. politics. He wouldn't give a shit. He only gives a shit if he's drunk.
I think that's probably a jab at either Dan Harmon or Justin Roiland. I feel like that's a trait one of them possesses.
That sounds like a Dan Harmon thing to me.
Yeah, it sounds like a Dan Harmon thing.
He's really drunk at a bar and just be like, dude, Dan, I don't think you've ever been to Israel. Well, listen! Let me show you some articles on my phone.
It's like, I kind of want to know what the takes are, but I also kind of don't, because it could go either way.
I feel like they'd be pretty anti-Semitic. I want an episode like of Rick just talking about the Jews.
Really?
What?
They're just fancy white people, Morty.
Oh,
Oh, jeez, Rick.
Well, you know, have we gotten to the point where we've heard about stuff that got cut from the show?
No, I feel like they get a pretty free reign.
Yeah,
They're the network's golden boy. Like,
yeah.
they are. Dan Harmon probably like screams at women in bars. I am Adult Swim.
No, I probably doesn't scream that at random people, but I'm willing to bet that comes up in phone conversation with his agents. But the other thing about that I was thinking is the used to be Golden Boy, the Venture Brothers. The last time the Venture Brothers had a new episode, we had a different president.
Yeah.
And Trump was literally in the last season of Venture Bros.
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh God, you're right.
Yeah, he was.
With their production schedule, I don't know if they'll even have time to acknowledge that in the new
Right.
ones. Maybe that's why it's taken so long to come out. Well, that's one great thing about Venture Brothers, though. It doesn't have that, like, Arrested Development has a really Bush era feel to it.
Oh boy, does it.
And Breaking Bad has a very Obama era feel to it,
Right.
post healthcare shit. And but Venture Brothers doesn't really have that same tone where it's as affected by the popular climate. It's more influenced by what kind of movies or TV are popular than.
For a while, I felt like it was intentionally hanging out in kind of a pre-9/11 world where the government did start needless wars, but it wasn't such like an insensitive issue. It was just like, yeah, sometimes we go over to the Middle East and screw things up. That's just what we do, you know?
Yeah.
But with OSI and Sphinx.
Americas will be Americas.
Right.
Yeah, it kind of acknowledges these kind of like shady government stuff, but it's not really about that. It's about the people involved.
Right. All the references are 90s era references for the most part anyways.
Yeah, that's why all the critics like it, because they're all old.
So there was this, because people talk about fake news and how that, and also things like how, like what they call it, the Mandela effect. We talked about it before with the Berenstain and Berenstain Bears and that, and how people's memory plays tricks, and how we can, not only can culture can inform and reshape our memories, but how we can remember things that never happened. Like, how like there's certain movie quotes that when you actually go back and watch the movie, the quote everyone says is off.
Yeah, like everybody thinks that Darth Vader said,
Luke, I am your father, but he says, no, I am your father. Yeah.
See, I was going to do that, but in reverse, but I forgot how it went. Right.
So here is a quote from George Orwell's 1984, which was published in The Guardian when they were making a point about facts and fake news. And it goes like this. It's short. Facts matter more than anything, insisted Winston. Facts are worth more than all the tea in China. Why? I'd rather have some facts than a house made of solid gold. Big Brother smirked. Facts are whatever I say they are. For example, trains are small, really small. You could fit a train in the palm of your hand. That's not true, sputtered Winston. I was on a train just yesterday. It was the biggest damn thing I'd ever seen. No, boomed Big Brother. It was small. Welcome to Tiny Train World, Winston. Enjoy not being able to catch a train anymore on account of they're too small, you idiot. That's not actually in 1984. That was an internet post. But the Guardian published it as an actual quote from 1984.
Again, that's got a Rick and Morty vibe to it.
But I feel like that should be amended to all future published copies of 1984. I feel like if there's a ghost of George Orwell, he'd appreciate it.
Right.
I even if you don't know that Big Brother's not actually in the story, that style, that like "Welcome to Tiny Train World" should tell you that's it's just fucking hilarious, and it's not really a funny book.
Not a funny book.
Don't believe everything you read on the internet just because there's a picture with a quote next to it by Abraham Lincoln.
That's Yeah, I mean, it's great. We live in apocalyptic times, people, and we don't know what's real anymore. I hardly can follow the news because I see something posted. I'm like, I don't know if that you can go there and look and see that, like, oh, actually they're taking this one line and blowing it out of proportion to get headlines, but it's just, to do that for every article of news is so exhausting, and I just don't give a shit.
Well,
I mean, look at the president's Twitter to find out who we're threatening this week, and that's good enough for me.
Our reality was always constructed and fantastical. Like, for a lot of parts of the world, for a lot of human history, the real, factual, common sense thing to do when the crops didn't grow good was to conduct a human sacrifice. It just made sense.
Like Shirley Jackson's Lottery.
Yeah, or like all of the Cold War propaganda. All of the look at all of the mythology in America's own very recent, in the big scale history of its own founding and its founding fathers. So much of that stuff is bullshit on some level or another, but everyone learns it in school, right? Like, I think this sense of unreality and fake news, this isn't some new phenomenon or facts stopped mattering. It's part of a collective realization that a lot of what we thought were facts never ever were in the first place.
Yeah. It's not new in that, but it's more prevalent, and it's also there's layers to it now. Like, one of the popular shows for people who know they are smart and very smart and only watch shows for smart people about smart people is Adam Ruins Everything. But
Neil deGrasse Tyson of TV.
Yeah, but if you've watched that, it's just as biased as anything else, and makes its own intentional exclusions and simplifications just for
same thing with Penn and Teller's bullshit, which is really entertaining and funny when they take down like psychics and stuff. But then it's also they're like, actually, secondhand smoke doesn't cause cancer, and the government's bad.
Yeah, it's the same show.
It's like, by the way, guys, you should check out this libertarianism stuff because it works for us, the rich Las Vegas magicians.
See, I can't really blame magicians for being libertarians because they're fucking magicians. If you know any magicians, you gotta cut magicians a lot of slack because magicians are weird as shit. The kind of person who becomes a magician is, they're great.
Even then, you have to reconcile being a magician. You have to reconcile that everything you do is a lie, like as a premise.
Oh yeah,
you just lie to people as your life. Everything about it's fake.
They're always trying to trick you. Don't loan them money.
Right.
Never loan a magician money. If you listen to all of our episodes and don't learn anything, learn that.
Don't take any wooden nickels from magicians, because then they'll like pull a card out of it and it'll be your card. And that's when they got you. That's like the magic equivalent of knowing someone's true name. Once you've got their card, that's it. It's over.
Never let a magician anywhere near your ass. You have no idea what they could pull out of there.
That's the thing.
Oh dear.
That's the thing. You think, I mean, you guys try and stay safe around magicians, but ultimately you're going to lose because they're magicians. You can try and keep your money away from a magician, but he'll just get your wallet somehow anyways.
Right. You can see a street performer, walk away from him, next thing you know, you walk right into him.
Not going to let him
It was all misdirection. The crowd, everything. They're just playing you.
Not going to let him see your ass. He'll just pull your ass out of a hat and then pull things out of it.
Look. Oh, no.
So, what else do we have on the docket? Did you have anything on your mind, Spook?
Good. We aren't going to top a magic ass trick like the hat trick of ass magic. We're not going to top that.
The ass hat trick.
I think this discussion of magic is just too riveting.
Speaking of magic, how about the Harry Potter fandom? Shouldn't they just all die?
Well, they're getting
It's
old.
bad. It's real bad, folks.
No, I'm surprised there isn't the that sort of Final Fantasy House fandom within the Harry Potter thing, because that would be real easy to do.
I suspect there's probably one out there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like
Hogwarts, but they're like shouting at each other as well.
Yeah, Oh, sorry. I didn't have anything against Harry Potter. I thought it was fine. I kind of liked it as I was a kid, but oh boy, do I hate it now.
I'm completely indifferent. I don't know why you would.
Just the sheer scope and annoyingness of the fandom, and just how prevalent they're really. Like, I'm not against using pop culture metaphors because it gives you something to use, that a familiar framework, but people use them so badly. There's so many bad Harry Potter takes, so much Trump's president. This is just like the time Mrs. What's-Her-Face took over Hogwarts, and we're the resistance. And
I really actually haven't seen much of that. Like, and when it comes to like obvious real life nuisances, like I've seen people wearing fake foxtails in public, acting a fool, practically like giggling and just being obnoxious and large, but I've never seen someone running around in a wizard robe yelling, Expecto Patronus. Never seen that. So
we're Dumbledore's army.
Yeah, that's a thing. The hashtag resistance is kind of a fun way for people to kind of LARP that they're in a Dumbledore army kind of thing. I love the fucking hashtag resistance people on Twitter. They're the best.
It's because they're not resisting anything.
No, they aren't.
They hate Trump, but they like everything else.
They don't even have any hot
exactly
takes.
The way it is.
Their takes are lame and normy and weak.
Yeah, it's like
I can't hate Harry Potter people that much, because I just really like I've ran into two people in my life that were really like, one of them had a Harry Potter tattoo, but I didn't know what it was. It wasn't like obvious to me. And the other one was just like, yeah, I want to go to the Disney Orlando or whatever it is and see Harry Potter World. That was like the max that they got with me.
I mean, I don't hate anybody for liking Harry Potter, but I was lukewarm on it to start with, and the way it's framed and presented in pop culture has just made me has exacerbated my negative feelings about it. But I mean, I'm also like, I'm also reaching the point where I kind of hate Star Wars now too.
Oh yeah, fuck some Star Wars. By the way, listen to me on an upcoming episode of Bar Wars where we discuss the Ewoks cartoon.
Bar Wars?
Yeah, that's the thing I did.
Shit, that sounds good as hell.
No, I guessed it on somebody's. We got drunk and watched some of the Ewoks cartoon.
Nice.
That sounds good as hell, man. Branch out.
It was fun actually, but also fuck Star Wars. I mean, I told them like, if we're gonna be on, I want to do some like this stupid Star Wars shit, like Ewoks or Jar Jar Binks, because I don't give. Star Wars is so. I mean, it's not just Disney.
Speaking of hot takes and unpopular opinions, I wonder how relevant this will be when the episode actually comes out. But the meme that's been around for about 78 hours at this point, maybe more, maybe it's closer to 3 days now.
If you like Elf on a Shelf,
if you like Elf on a Shelf, you'll like my shitty rhyme. Ah, shoved in your face.
I liked a few of those.
There was one really good one. And it was, if you liked Elf on a Shelf, you'll like, and the background picture was moss, and the foreground image was a bunch of vertical and horizontal lines.
Yeah, I saw that one.
That was one I liked. I liked a few that my friend made, like Zuck on a Cuck and Furry in a Jury.
Yeah, that was pretty brilliant. I like Kojima on a Cheetah.
Kojima on a Cheetah?
No,
Vegeta.
Oh yeah, I like mine better.
Sorry, none of these doing anything for me.
If you like Elf on a Shelf, you'll love the crushing existential despair of confronting.
If you like Elf on a Shelf, you'll like go fuck yourself.
Do you guys actually? Did you have elves on shelves? I never had elves on shelves in my childhood.
That's a more modern contrivance.
Oh, I don't know what the fuck this is.
Well, and then the Elf on the Shelf thing has some really actually kind of screwed up lore to it, like that. Like, it's one thing to lie to your kids and say that there's this old man who lives in the North Pole that watches
fat old
everything.
Pedophile.
Right. Okay, that's a bit of a disturbing thing to tell your kids, but the elf on the shelf is even more disturbing in that the elf are the eyes and ears of Santa, and the elf is going to report back, you know.
The elf's a cop.
He's essentially like an embedded agent in your family for Santa. But here's the deal, folks. It is a doll that has magic on it, and if you touch the doll, it loses its magic, loses its connection with Santa, and it's like a dead man's switch. It's a dead man's switch. If he loses connection with his embedded agent, naughty list. Naughty list instantly. So you can't put the elf on the shelf. So you can go to YouTube and type in kids crying about elf on the shelf, because what will happen is the elf on the shelf will fall off like a cattle knockoff or something, and you're in this catch-22 situation where you can't return the elf to its place of respect in the home, because if you touch it, that's it. Game over.
You just got to use some tongs.
I mean, they should sell an accessory like elf gloves.
Elf gloves, magic elf gloves.
Yeah, it's extra $15, but
Elf on the Shelf is a cruel thing.
Yeah,
that's like a reverse nanny cam, where it's a stuffed toy that's supposed to be watching you but doesn't actually do anything.
Well, it's also like the embedded agent. It's the eye of God. It's Big Brother. It's
Big Santa.
Yeah, this fat old pedophile is like little slavelet that just watches you in your room all the time, or wherever your parents think you're gonna get up to some shit.
Welcome to Tiny Sleigh World, boomed Big Santa.
Where you can't ride a sleigh because you're too naughty.
See, I went to Catholic school when I was a kid, so, like, you know, we were taught God is always watching, Jesus is always watching you, and, like, for a while I actually believed it, but, wow.
You know, a harder pill for me to swallow was, I can understand how an omnipotent being would have the right and privilege to spy on every almost intimate thought and moment, as disturbing that as that is. But the real one that wigged me out is the thought of spending eternity with that thing, doing the same stuff over and over again, never-endingly.
Can you imagine, like, Jesus coming up to you, just like, hey, remember that time late at night when you masturbated about that really fucked up thing? I saw that.
Well, it's cool too.
Elbowing you.
I liked it.
But like that, but it's on an eternal scale. So the first time he does that, that's kind of like, wow, okay, Jesus. But then it's like, okay, I'm spending eternity with you. Every time I look at you and you look at me, we have complete knowledge of our entire life experience. And all these other people around me presumably may, and all we do is ceaseless eternal worship of you forever. That's it. One thing
like
forever. It seems not only like not a great deal, it's kind of like scary and bad. Like, that's it for you. You've lost all autonomy. This is what you're doing forever.
Well, when you think
God
about
only knows what I'm jerking off to.
When you think about it, we're all just God's cam girls.
I might go on a shirt or something.
This is just one big Twitch stream, and God ain't clicking the donate button. But you should, friends, at the Homo Vulgaris Patreon.
Send us money. Liberate us from the tyranny of wage labor.
Yeah,
I don't need
go
it.
buy our shirts.
I'm gonna try reverse psychology on these. I don't need it.
I've been trying that for years, and it hasn't worked. It's rabbit season here at Homo Vulgaris. Nobody say it's
no, we're not.
Fuck you.
Yep. I think we should call it a night, guys. I think
we got about an hour and a half in there.
No, about an hour. About spot on. So,
anyone have any final thoughts, messages to the universe, prayers?
Thank you for having me on tonight. I mean, this was a really cool opportunity.
Yeah,
it was a pleasure. We'll have to have you on again so you can talk more.
I don't,
Thank you.
Yeah, you get free college credit for this. I don't think you're in school, so it's not gonna help. But whatever.
Yeah, this counts towards broadcast journalism.
Put it on your LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say my final wisdom is don't post your dick pics to LinkedIn.
No.
I just want to plug Discord. You come in Discord, you pretty much get on the show.
Yeah, that seems to be how it works.
That's how it is. So, all right, if you're listening and you're like, man, I had all these ideas while I was listening, and I could have just jumped in at any second. Well, yeah, fucking
if you're an expert in something disgusting or boring, please come on the show.
I guess final thoughts. Don't trust a magician or a libertarian with your money or your sphincter.
Yep, sounds about right. All right. Find peace in the wired. All hail.
Let's all love Lane.
Let's all love Lane.